You know that moment you see in movies all the time? The world starts to fade, everything goes black, and then poof, you're waking up on the floor? Fainting is a super common and, let's be honest, a pretty scary experience. But what if I told you it's often just your body's incredibly strange but effective way of protecting itself? All right, let's get into it. Have you ever been there? Maybe you're standing in a hot, crowded room, or you just saw something unsettling, and suddenly you feel this wave of warmth. Your vision starts to close in like a tunnel. You are so not alone. It's a feeling that something like a third of all people will experience at least once in their lives. Now, the fancy medical term for this whole event is syncope, and it's really just a sudden, very brief loss of consciousness. The reason? For just a moment, not enough oxygen-rich blood is getting up to your brain. But the key part here is that the recovery is fast, usually in less than a minute. So you can think of it like your body's own emergency reboot system. Fainting can feel like it just comes out of the blue, but a lot of the time, your body's actually sending out some pretty clear distress signals first. This little warning period even has a name. It's called the prodrome. So let's take a look at what those signals actually are. What's so wild is how all these symptoms are connected. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? You feel lightheaded because your blood pressure is dropping. The nausea, that clammy cold sweat, the tunnel vision, that's all just your nervous system flashing big, bright warning lights that a system reboot is about to happen. Honestly, recognizing these signs is your absolute best defense against taking a tumble. So, why does our body do this? Well, in the vast majority of cases, it's actually not a sign of some serious, scary problem. Instead, it's just a temporary and totally harmless glitch in the system. It's a powerful overreaction to what's usually a pretty minor event. And check out this number, because it really shows you how common this specific kind of fainting is. For people under 40, over 85% of all fainting spells are what's called vasovagal syncope. It's the #1 reason people end up in the ER for fainting, and almost all the time, it's harmless. So the whole thing kicks off with a trigger. And this can be something emotional, like intense fear or the sight of a needle. Or it could be totally physical, like just standing still for a long time. They used to call it parade ground syncope, or maybe getting too hot, or even something as simple as a really intense coughing fit. Okay, so what happens next? Well, that trigger confuses a major player in your body called the vagus nerve. This nerve helps control your heart rate and blood pressure, but in this moment, it gets its signals totally crossed. It basically panics and slams on the emergency brakes when it really doesn't need to. And the results of that overreaction? It is immediate and it is dramatic. The vagus nerve tells your blood vessels to just open wide and tells your heart to slow way, way down. So with these wide open vessels and a slower pump, your blood pressure just bottoms out. And here's the brilliant part. With your blood pressure too low to pump blood uphill to your brain against gravity, your body does the smartest, quickest thing it can. It makes you horizontal. Fainting isn't the problem, it's the solution. It gets your head on the same level as your heart, and boom, blood flow to the brain is restored almost instantly. It's a feature, not a bug. Okay, so we know most faints are this harmless, vasovagal type. But how in the world do you tell the difference between a simple overreaction and something more serious? This is where paying attention to the context is absolutely critical. Pay close attention here because this is probably the most important slide we're going to look at. On the left, you've got all those classic, less serious triggers we've been talking about. But on the right, those are the red flags. Fainting during exercise, not after, that's a big one. Or fainting with zero warning, just a sudden lights out moment. And if it happens along with chest pain, palpitations, or if you have a family history of sudden death, you need to see a doctor right away. Context is everything. So even if you're pretty sure your faint was the harmless kind, getting a proper medical evaluation is so important. It's really the only way to be certain and to rule out those more serious underlying heart-related causes. So when is a trip to the doctor a must? Well, if it's your very first time fainting, absolutely go. If you're having them over and over, if you got hurt when you fell, or if you had any of those red flag symptoms we just talked about, it is crucial to get checked out. And of course, if you're pregnant. This chart kind of shows you how doctors play detective to figure out what's going on. A classic vasovagal faint with all those warning signs can often be figured out with just a simple exam and an EKG. But fainting during exercise? That might lead to an echocardiogram to look at the heart structure. And a super sudden faint with no warning? That might call for something like a Holter monitor to watch the heart's rhythm for a day or two. The story you tell about your faint points them right to the cause. All right, this brings us to the most empowering part of all this. You are not helpless here.
Once you know what to look for, you can actually stop a fainting spell right in its tracks.
This is the single most effective thing you can possibly do. The second you feel those warning signs, the dizziness, the nausea, do not try to tough it out. Lie down. Immediately. If you can, prop your legs up on something. You're just giving your body a shortcut to what it was trying to do by fainting in the first place. Use gravity to get that blood back to your brain. Okay, but what if you can't lie down? No problem. These physical countermaneuvers are your next best weapon. Crossing your legs and tensing up everything from the waist down, or even just clenching your fists and arms really hard, physically squeezes your blood vessels. This little trick can raise your blood pressure just enough to fight off that drop and keep you conscious. So, here's the big takeaway. Fainting isn't some failure of your body. It's actually an extreme but very protective reflex. It's a temporary reboot to keep your most important organ, your brain, safe and sound. Now that you can spot the warnings and tell the difference between a simple glitch and a serious red flag, the power is back in your hands. So what's your game plan for the next time you feel that world-tilting sensation start to kick in?